In order for me to get a job, they filled out, I think, a couple hundred, I think it was like 500 applications. And I didn't do not one app. All of it was done by application team.
How long did it take from when you started interviewing to actually
Yeah.
receiving the offer that you ended up receiving?
From the beginning, when they started putting in apps for me to the time I got my offer, it was about a little bit over 30 days, like 35 days or 37 days. I think the biggest issue that people have is that whenever they go into interviews, they tend to forget that the person that they're talking to is a human being, and they tend to almost give that person some type of superior power over them.
Why did you choose to join Symposia over the other opportunities that you could have gone with? What else were you considering?
I chose Symposia just because it fixed the problem that I had. It's basically what I do with vendor risk, right? I was able to outsource something to somebody else, and they provided me with everything that I needed. Like, people would like it whenever they think that you care about them and you talk about things that are like casual, like a regular person having a regular conversation, just like you and I are having a regular conversation.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. My name is Ismail. I'm one of the advisors here at Symposia, and tonight you're here live with Ebenezer Boateng, who is actually coming up on his 1-year anniversary of being a member of Symposia, and we're going to share his success story tonight. Now, if you're here, it really means a lot because you could be anywhere right now, but because you're here, it lets us know that you really take your destiny seriously. So tonight, what we're going to do is share a story from one of our alumni who took a chance, who really bet on himself and invested the time to really change his life. And while we do this, I want you to really open your heart and really open your mind to the possibilities that the next decisions you make could actually have on your life. Right? So we just need that commitment. You could be anywhere right now. I could be anywhere right now. Ebenezer could be anywhere right now. And because of how valuable time is, can only spend an hour with us because he has work tomorrow. And I know you guys do too. So let's make this time useful. Let's make it worth it. All right. So I need you to commit right before we get started. I need you to commit to giving your undivided attention. I need you to commit to believing that what's possible for this young man can also be possible for you. I need you to visualize yourself in these situations. If you really want to do this, we speak to hundreds of people every month, and the number one thing I see holding people back is their own belief. So if you're here right now, it's because you take your destiny seriously. If you actually want something to happen, whether it's here or any other area of your life, you first need to believe it's possible. So Ebenezer's here, he's going to share that story with us. You also can answer some questions. We're going to have a good time. All right.
Yep.
So let's get into it.
Yep.
All right. Now, who are we? What is Symposia? Symposia is an organization that serves compliance and privacy services to governments. And we provide strategic mentorship to the world. Now, our trust services serves companies by embedding these compliance standards into the market, and our academy provides hands-on education and mentorship to driven individuals like yourself and the people like Ebenezer, who's here with us today. So, as of last month, we've got over a dozen chief information security officers and experts who are now mentors in our organization. Dozens of companies have extended offers to our talent. Experts who have built educational organizations and curriculums for thousands now lead our academy, and multiple alumni have also decided to come back and be mentors. So our story starts off like many. The founder of this organization struggled to get into the tech industry, but along the way, he found mentors in cybersecurity, mentors in business, and even spirituality. Fast forward, he then got multiple offers in this industry without a degree or certification because he leveraged his skills. And then after that, he started helping friends and family members for free. And the way Symposia was actually born was through documenting all of those hurdles, all of his pain, and how he overcame it. And as word got out and people started getting results, like Ebenezer, who's here today, we started to attract the attention of chief information security officers and actually build out the academy that we're here to talk about tonight. So then we organically launched with very little branding, just helping people here and there. And then an organization reached out to us who actually worked with the US Open. And they helped us rebrand. Fast forward 6 months later, we became Symposia. So today, I want you to meet our alumni of the month, Ebenezer, and he really cares about making this accessible to others. He's 22 years old, and he's an information security analyst. based out here in Houston, but he was born in Ghana. So before any of this even happened, we'll talk about his story. He was a student, he was working at a shop, and now, fast forward a year afterwards, he's an information security analyst, and more than one company tried to shake their stick at him. So happy to introduce you guys to Ebenezer, and we're going ahead and get started with this interview.
Yep, sounds good.
Right.
Thank
Cool,
you.
brother. Good evening, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I can't complain.
Good. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. What do you do? And help us get to know you better.
Well, I first want to kind of like show my appreciation for everybody who's on this call right now, taking their time out to learn about my journey and to take whatever they want to take out of it. But back to your question about who am I? My name is Ebenezer. I'm an information security analyst. I'm based here in Houston, Texas. I'm also 22. I'm going to go into a little bit about what it means to be an information security analyst within the scope of the work that I do. The role InfoSec analyst is very general, but I think my job is kind of centered and focused only on third-party risk management. And all that is that like I'm doing information security reviews on companies that want to work with my company or companies that want to provide a service for my company. And that's kind of what I've been doing for a year now. But yeah, that's really what I do, and that's who I am. That's what y'all need to know, what y'all want to know. We're gonna get rid of all the excess information I don't care about.
All right, man. So before you got to Symposia, what was going on? What were you doing, and what were you struggling with before you came here?
Before I joined Symposia, I think the biggest issue that I had was being able to send enough applications in order to get an interview. Obviously, in order to get an interview, you have to put in applications. And I think that people kind of underestimate the amount of volume that you actually have to put in order to kind of see results. I think you obviously have like special cases where you don't put in that many apps and you end up getting an interview, may even end up getting the job. But in most cases, the amount of apps that you have to put in is well beyond what you think is good enough. So that was my biggest issue. I think that was a bottleneck for me. Like I just didn't feel like putting in applications, and I felt like I wasn't putting in enough. So when I found out that Symposia offered, as part of their entire service, an application team that sends out apps for you, I was immediately sold because it fixed a problem that I had. So I was like, yeah, let me join and let me see what they can offer, because it seems like they have the solution to my problem.
Okay. Well, how many applications did they fill out for you?
In order for me to get a job, they filled out, I think, a couple hundred. I think it was like 500 applications. And I didn't do not one app. All of it was done by application team. And I would just see at the end of the day, they send out like a report of how many applications that they send in. And I would see which companies they applied to and how many applications that they sent in. And it was great because with my own time, I wouldn't be able to do that. So having somebody to do that for me was a blessing, absolute blessing.
500 applications. And how, and these generated interviews for you. So during the interview process, I guess, how long was your interview process with these companies?
I think it depends. Not every company does it the exact same way. I've had experiences where it'll be multiple stages of interviews. What you see often is that you get a recruiter call first. And that one is usually like cellular. So it's going to be over the phone. They'll call you. And then after they call you, let's say it went well, they'll talk to the hiring manager or whoever the next person is. And you have like a face-to-face like this. Some of them go through multiple stages, and sometimes you'll only have one stage where it's, do or die, win or go home. And I've had an instance like that where it was one interview, but instead of it just being one-on-one, it was me talking to a panel, right? So that could include somebody in the security team. My experience, it was, I think, 2 people that were a part of like the information security and compliance team, as well as the chief information security officer, the CISO. So that was just
how long were you interviewing from end to end? So we started sending out applications for you.
Yeah.
How long was that journey? Like, how long did it take from you from when you started interviewing to actually
Yeah.
receiving the offer that you ended up receiving?
From the beginning, when they started putting in apps for me to the time I got my offer, it was about a little bit over 30 days, like 35 days, 37 days. But keep in mind that like this is not regular. Like it don't expect that this is like something that happens to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the circumstances that I guess that I was in that caused this result to happen. But for me, it took about like 37 days, 38 days for me to get my full-time offer.
Awesome. So for you, we'll want to get back into your story, but since we're on the topic of interviewing, where do you think people struggle with interviews?
I think the biggest issue that people have is that whenever they go into interviews, they tend to forget that the person that they're talking to is a human being, and they tend to almost um, give that person some type of superior power over them. And as a result, they become very nervous or they speak very robotically, like they're not natural. And it sounds as if they're reading a script. And people can tell if you're reading this, even if you're not reading a script, if it sounds like you're reading a script, it's not natural. It doesn't make the interview go well. It doesn't make it flow well. So I think the biggest issue is that people get really nervous, or people almost kind of idolize the person who's interviewing them, and it just kind of makes them do worse and not succeed in the interview as the way that they want it to go. So I think that's the biggest issue. I had that experience in the beginning when I first started interviewing, but the more that you interview and the more that you critique yourself and actually listen into the interviews that you've done, then you're able to kind of adjust and do better each time that you have another interview.
How did your interview style change from when you started to through the time that you were coached by the people at Symposia?
Yeah, I think when I first started, it was the way that I just explained that most people do it, kind of very robotic. But I realized that a good interview is a conversation, right? It's a conversation between two people. Obviously, the person who's on the other side of the call, they hold all autonomy whether you get the job or not. But also you want to know if you want to work for the company as well. So it went from that robotic style to more conversational style. Like I tell people all the time, like one of my interviews, it became very conversational. I was talking to one person about their experience in the Army, another person about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like these things are all outside of the scope of InfoSec, but it's a conversation. Like people would like it whenever they think that you care about them and you talk about things that are like casual, like a regular person having a regular conversation, just like you and I are having a regular conversation. I think that's the best way. So long story short, went from that robotic type of conversation style to more of a casual conversational type of interview.
And you're pretty young, man. Did your age play into any of these scenarios at all when you're interviewing with these companies?
No. Sometimes they would say that I look young, but it's like, other than that, I have a baby face, so I kind of get that from everybody. But it didn't really play a role. I was able to get offers with this baby face, so I don't think it really is a point of kind of not being able to go on to the next step or whatever the case may be. So
yeah. Awesome. So we're here now, right?
Yep,
Looking back a year ago, why did you choose to join Symposia over the other opportunities that you could have gone with? What else were you considering?
I chose Symposia just because it fixed the problem that I had, right? I was able to outsource. It's basically what I do with vendor risk, right? I was able to outsource something to somebody else, and they provided me with everything that I needed, right? Symposia provided me with application, like being able to send out applications for me. And now that I'm even in the field of InfoSec, like I'm learning through these CISOs who are coming and giving out their lectures and having these cohorts. Like even though I'm already in the field of information security, like there's an ongoing learning process, and Symposia offers that for me as an alumni, which is crazy. You really don't get that, right? Most of the times you see like boot camps where it's like over like it's just Zoom and then the person is going through their slides. Once you finish the boot camp, then you're kind of on your own. But that's not the case here at all. The case was there was the education there, but also after the education, like what happens next is the most important part. Like people aren't just realistically, people aren't just coming here just to learn and not get a job. Like that's not the case. People really don't care. If there's nothing that they can gain from it, they're not going to do it. People are learning the skill so that they can take that into the job market and be properly compensated for the skills that they have. So I think that, being able to have that in the whole system was completely different from every other boot camp or whatever institution that was out there, especially provided by Symposia.
Right. So you mentioned the CISOs here. I don't think you spoke about that earlier. How important is it to have a chief information security officer? How important is that piece?
It's very important. It's very important. I mean, it's a C-suite position, just like it's important to have a CEO. It's very important to have a chief information security officer who will oversee everything that deals with information security. If you don't have a CISO in your company, it's not a good sign. You need a CISO. You need somebody who can oversee it, just like somebody in whatever the case may be. It's very important.
Right. So they're your mentors here, but how is your relationship with your CISO at work? Would you have access to them outside of work to sort
Um,
of as you?
I wouldn't have access to my CISO outside of work. I think I've only had about like one conversation with my CISO, and it wasn't like a one-on-one. It was during a meeting. But here at Symposia, like I'm able to talk to one of the professors who's also a CISO, one-to-one. You know, I'm able to ask him questions, and it's a blessing due to the fact that there's so much years of experience. I know that the founder of Symposia, Augustine, talks about being able to condense 10 years of knowledge or whatever the case may be into like a small amount of time. And that's what you kind of get with CISO. Like CISOs become CISOs not because they were just randomly chosen or it was unmerited. They become a CISO because it was merited. They've done something, they've worked, they've have experience. So being able to have that type of, close access to a chief information security officer where you can ask them about their experience, ask them about the problem that they faced, and be able to go there directly and not have some type of, wall built between you and that person is something that you can't get anywhere. You can't get that in a boot camp. I've never seen a boot camp where they have CISOs there. You can talk to them. No, it's usually some guy at his house and the kids talking in the background. You don't see that. You know what I mean? So that's just what it is.
Yeah, man. We support everyone who is actually trying to help people get into this industry, no matter where they might be, from their job, from their home as well. But like you mentioned, having access to a C-suite mentor is invaluable. That's what it sounds like. So with this, how long did it actually take you to feel confident in your abilities before you began interviewing?
I think I studied about like 3 to 4 months, but to be honest, I was still learning even when I was interviewing, and I was learning in the interview process, right? Because obviously, like I learned theory, like I learned about the process of third-party risk management, but apart from learning the theoretical stuff, like you need to learn how to interview as well, right? They teach you to interview, but whenever you start interviewing into like a real life setting, you're able to learn a lot more things and what people will usually ask. So yeah, about 3 months. And just like I said, even whenever I started interviewing, I was still learning as well. So it's really like an ongoing learning process.
So you're still learning,
right?
You're working for a year. How do you feel now? You've been there for a while now. How do you feel at work? Do you feel prepared? Do you feel supported? Where would you be now with that?
Yeah, I feel very right. I feel very prepared and very supported. And I've been able to kind of suggest a lot of changes in the way that my company does stuff that they didn't really kind of realize was an issue or didn't realize that they had a room for improvement. Like I brought those things. And most of the time it's very obvious stuff that you tend to kind of overlook. So through the experience that I've had being a student at Symposia and obviously kind of working in this field for a little bit, like I'm able to bring suggestions to my company to make the processes better, to make it more efficient, to make it quicker. It makes everybody's job easier whenever you suggest something that makes things better. So that's what I've been able to provide for my company while I've been working here.
Sounds like you developed some leverage.
I did. Yeah.
Wait, so how has your life changed since you've been in InfoSec now? You're 22 years
Yeah,
old. You're working in information
22.
technology, security analyst. Like, what's
Yeah,
different?
it's a big change. I mean, like most of the time you don't see somebody like my age kind of I guess working in this field, or I guess making the amounts that I'm making. Like I wasn't making much before I started working at InfoSec. I was a cashier, just like you stated in the beginning. I was a cashier working at a grocery store, and you can imagine how much I was making. It wasn't that much. You're like, how much really can you make as a cashier? So apart from the monetary changes, I think being able to support my family in a way that I couldn't do before is a big change. Also back to the money, like I like seeing my bank account go up. Like I like seeing the numbers go up each month. It's just, I don't know, it's addicting. It's an addicting feeling for me. So I think that's like a really big thing that has changed for me, because I didn't see it as much. When I was working as a cashier, I was so scared to look at my bank account. Like I didn't check it. Like I would use my credit card to pay stuff, and then I'll just press pay amount and just cross my fingers and hope that I had money in my account. That's just how it was. But now that's not the case, because I obviously know like what I'm making now, and I'm a lot comfortable with the lifestyle that I'm living at the moment.
You got me. You got a bunch of addictive personalities. Everyone's got their advice, but yours seems to be growth.
Right.
What would have happened had you not made this decision? Where do you think you would be a year from, well, I guess a year ago, if you hadn't done this?
That's a great question.
What was your plan? Did you have a plan?
My plan was to get into InfoSec some way or another. It had to happen. But I think that the circumstances were set so perfectly for me that there was no way that I wasn't going to get into it. And I'll just kind of give a little bit of background. I think about 3 weeks ago, my brother was on here. His name is Kelvin, and he was the first person for y'all to interview for the live ones. And he kind of told a story about how the founder got into InfoSec, which motivated him to get into InfoSec. But what happens after that is that I was also motivated by him, by his success. So first the founder, right, motivated my brother, and my brother motivated me, right? So if Symposia wasn't there, I think it would have been a lot harder for me to get into InfoSec. But I think that just because of the way that I am, like you explained a little bit earlier about I have an addictive personality whenever I find interest into something, I would have forced my way in here some way or another. Now, in terms of how long it would have took, may have been different. But in terms of actually getting into it, I would have done it. Because for me, like, I think that when I was working as a cashier at the grocery store, I think a lot of the times people get very kind of comfortable in the position that they're in. That's why you end up seeing people working the same job, like no disrespect, but that's why you see a lot of people working kind of the same job for 30 years, right? Time goes by really quickly. And I didn't want to feel comfortable. I needed to get out of it some way or another. So I would have got here somehow, but it probably would have took a lot longer. I'll tell you that.
Man, I love that mindset. It's what I really admire about you is the character trait you have of there's no plan B, it's plan A. The timeline for plan A it may vary, but this is my plan. Right. I think that's the secret ingredient for anybody who wants to pursue any worthy goal is that. Now, why did you decide to outsource finally? Like instead of doing this yourself? I mean, you've got an ironclad mindset. Why not do it yourself?
I didn't want to because I knew that if somebody could do it for me better and consistently, why not just outsource it? Like it's better to outsource to somebody who can do it better. That's the whole point of going back to what I was saying. That's the whole point of people getting vendors. They get vendors because they don't want to do it or they don't know how to do it well. So they just get somebody who could do it better for them. All right. I was able to focus on learning and just interviewing. I didn't have to focus on putting in the applications because whether you know it or not, actually applying for jobs is a job, right? Like apart from those easy applies where you press one button, if you have to do a workday application, and a lot of them, it takes a lot of your time. And I didn't want to do that. So being able to have somebody who can do it for me, like, was great, right? We know the saying that is work smarter, not harder. This is the perfect example of that. Work smarter, not harder. Invest your time into one thing and let your money work in a different way for you while somebody does it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how it was.
So now that you're here and you said that you're earning a lot, you're earning a pretty good amount, what has opened up for you in your life? We talk a bit about when you change your life, the lives of those around you are also able to change. How has this affected you and those around you?
I think it's affected my family, like my parents more. Just being able to contribute in a ways that not that I didn't want to before, but I literally could not. I did not have the capability, right? Like I'm from Ghana, so right now we're trying to work some things in Ghana as well. So like everything that you want to be done requires money. That's just how life works. There's no escaping that. So being able to provide and just really, there's so much freedom, right? Money literally gives you a lot of freedom to do a lot of things. If you don't have money, you can't outsource, you can't do a lot of things. So being able to have that money to help my parents, to help myself, get stuff for myself, I think that's really been the biggest change for me. I'm not even a materialistic person. I'm not a person who buys a lot of things, but I think being able to kind of change my surroundings with what I've gained from my job has like done a lot for me, and I think it's helped me overall.
Also, so you're earning pretty good. You've had a great impact on your family, but what's the work-life balance?
Um, I'll say the work-life balance is good. I'll say this though, this first quarter of this year has been busy. When I first started last year, like Q3 and 4, it was very relaxed. And Q1 this year has been busy, so I haven't really been able to kind of do what I usually do. I'm a person who likes working out a lot. Like I haven't been able to go into the gym as much as as much as I want to, but I think it's a temporary season. It's like a season that we're in that is eventually going to die down and slow down for a little bit. But I'm not like working on Saturdays and Sundays. I'm not stressing over getting things done every single time. No, that's not the case. But end of the day, it's subjective to the company and the role that you work in. Like I'm speaking personally, like don't take my, I guess my experience as like the end all be all. This is what you can experience as well. There's some people out there who I know that work for 2 hours a day and they do nothing, right? Do nothing for the rest of the day. I know some people who work 8 hours, right? Just subjective. It's different for every single situation.
Awesome. Now you've referred a couple of friends over the last couple of months. You'll send people my way to maybe come talk about joining Symposia. What words of advice did you give them or anyone who's on the fence or considering doing something like this?
I think my biggest word of advice is to just take a chance on yourself. I remember a few months ago we created a video, and I basically said that like we know that everything is going up. The price for everything is going up. So instead of complaining, like the only thing you can control is to make more money. That's the only thing you can control. And that's speaking honestly. Like really, you can't go in there and change the prices of the groceries. You can't go in there and change the price of the clothes that you want to buy. So the only way that you can change I guess, how things are going for you is to take a chance. If I didn't take a chance, I still would have been making $15 an hour at a grocery store. I would have been comfortable, right? But if you stay comfortable, you stay stagnant and you don't move and you don't progress. So my advice to you is take that chance, learn a skill, because this skill is very sought out from every single company. All companies need somebody who's an information security analyst. All companies need somebody who can come and vet their vendors, because they don't want to be victim of a data breach. They don't want to lose money just because of what their buddy did. They don't want that. So they want you to come in and make sure that the company that they want to work for, they want to make sure that the vendor that they're working for has good security measures put in place so that they don't mess up our stuff. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. So take that chance, take that leap of faith, and yeah, that's my biggest piece of advice, because that's what I did. So I can only speak on what I did.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate
Yeah,
your time. Thanks, Ebenezer. So
absolutely.
before we wrap up tonight, everyone, if you have questions for Ebenezer around anything, what he does, his time in the program, feel free to drop those questions in the chat. We're going to enter our Q&A before we wrap, and we'd love to sort of give people a chance to ask their questions. What do you guys want to know? He's an open book. So when you guys fill up the chat with questions, I see you raise your hand. Go ahead and Sheldon, go ahead and put your question here in the chat, and Ebenezer will get to them. Okay. Here, Shannon Harrell asks, as a security analyst, what was the most difficult hands-on concept to wrap your mind around, as opposed to learning theory?
So as a security analyst, what was the most difficult hands-on concept to wrap your mind around, as opposed to learning theory? That's a great question, Shannon. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. I think the biggest thing that took me a little bit of time to wrap my head around was the fact that a lot of companies like that I've vetted don't have basic security measures put in place, like the most simple things that you would expect a company that's dealing with sensitive data to implement. They don't have that. That's the best way I can answer that question. I don't know if you're asking for like, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, because I've looked at a lot of vendor documentation, and sometimes you're like, come on guys, this is like simple stuff. For in 2024, these things should be implemented. You should have you should be encrypting your data in transit. Like you should at least offer your clients some type of unique encryption keys, but you don't see that in a lot of companies. So it's just something that like it's like, okay, it's crazy, but I mean, it is what it is. But that's the whole point of my role, to come in there and note those things down. So hopefully that answers your question, Shannon.
Okay. So someone anonymous, we'd love if you could drop your name. What are some study strategies you can recommend?
Great question. I would say immerse yourself in it entirely. Immerse yourself in InfoSec. The way that I did it before I actually got a job was I almost became delusional and kind of believed I was an information security analyst before I was actually an information security analyst, right? Speak as if you're in one. Record yourself and listen back to it, right? Like listen to content that focuses on information security and third-party risk, or whatever the case may be. Another study or tip or trick is use ChatGPT, right? Like the AI is out there for your learning as well, right? Go in there, put in prompts in, tell it to ask you questions. You could put in your answer, and whenever you put in your answer, you can ask GPT, okay, then how would you rate my answer, but how would you also answer it? Things like that. But most importantly, immerse yourself into it. That's what I did whenever I was driving to school. I was just listening to podcasts, nothing but podcasts, focused strictly on information security. Whenever you do that, whenever it comes to things of interviewing, because you've downloaded so much content into your brain, you're able to spit it out so much easier whenever it comes to actual interviewing with a real company. So that's my best piece of advice for you, anonymous.
Jordan Coleman, you might be a cousin, Jordan. Jordan Coleman asks, how comfortable were you with running risk assessments in GRC softwares before you got the job? Or was that day-to-day process taught to you on the job for the most part? It's a pretty good practical question.
Jordan says, how comfortable were you with running risk assessments in GRC software? Were you before you got the job? Or was the day-to-day process taught to you on the job? The day-to-day process was taught to me the first day I got the job. They have in their SharePoint, they have videos that teach us exactly what we need to do. They taught us what to look for and how to use the tools that we use during our risk assessment reviews. But in terms of like running risk assessments, I'm guessing you're saying like actually going through a risk evaluation for a vendor. Yeah, most of it was taught. Like a good company will teach you what they want you to do, right? Like even though you've gone through the interview and you've succeeded by getting the job offer, the way that companies do things are not the same. Like not every company does things the same, so they'll teach you how they want you to do things. So at my company, even though I knew the process and I knew how to do vendor review, they still taught me how to do it and how they want me to do it. So hopefully that answers your question, Jordan.
I see Michelle has a question about having a degree in communications and managing a flooring company. Will this work experience help you get into GRC? Yeah, I think your work experience is great, Michelle. Yeah, managing a team, it's a lot of soft skills. You ran a company. There are a lot of soft skills that even a technical person who can build apps and cloud environments from the ground up can't do because you've actually ran a company before. So that's useful. But it helps, but it's no replacement for actually knowing what you're doing.
Right.
So I have to plug that in and say, hey, develop some skills. There's
Right.
probably some transferable skills you have in there, but we'd have to look deeper at your
Mhm.
resume, at your LinkedIn, and actually meet you and sort of see the type of person you are. Because
Yeah.
most importantly, aside from any degrees or certifications, which are truly, I'd say, optional, what companies are really looking for are skills. But beyond those skills are certain character traits. Are you reliable? Are you dependable? Are you accountable? Or are you decisive?
That's right.
When
Perfectly well.
incidents happen and there's an incident response that has to go out immediately because thousands of records were leaked, it can't be any, let me think about it, or I need some time. You need to be ready. So you can sort of demonstrate those character traits in the interview and back that up with your skills. That will help you get into GRC. All right, let's move on to the next anonymous person. I think anonymous attendee, what I just said to Michelle also applies to you around certain experiences. We have an interview that we'll actually share here in a second. Could someone on the team share the link to the interview with Professor Jennifer? She's a Chief Information Security Officer and actually talks about certifications versus experience in getting into this field. And I think better than me, you should take it from a Chief Information Security Officer. Okay, thanks, Justin. Someone new. Hey, Justin asks, what are some struggles you faced when you first landed your job?
I think the biggest struggle is kind of like imposter syndrome, where you feel like you probably don't belong, where you don't know what you're doing. But I think that's like a feeling that people tend to have like in different, fields of work, whether it's like software engineering or infosec or whatever the case may be. But I think that the more that you get accustomed to the work that you're doing, that feeling kind of fades away. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing that was for me. But I don't feel that anymore because I'm very comfortable with my team. I'm comfortable with the process. I'm comfortable with what I'm doing and actually doing well on my deliverables. So yeah, that's the answer to that question.
Awesome. Princess asks, what entry-level roles are available in cybersecurity for individuals without prior experience or technical backgrounds? It's actually perfect for you because you came right out of school and working at a grocery store. So can you talk a bit about that? I mean, I guess the role you have is what's applicable to people.
The role that I have, guys, it's the process is very simple. Like if you can teach this process to a middle schooler and they should be able to understand it because it's very standard. Like it's streamlined so perfectly that like there's no random things going on. Right? Obviously, like you have like special cases where things may be a little bit different, but even though the process is simple, it is very crucial to every single business. So my answer to that is an information security analyst, and GRC analyst, infosec analyst, and GRC analyst. They're both an entry level role, as a middle role, as well as a senior role. Every company needs it, in all degrees. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question.
I think that communication skill you mentioned is actually answers Justin's next question, which is what is the most important skill you've learned and utilized? And what I'm hearing is that ability to distill these concepts and explain them plainly to the rest of your company is actually really important. Would you agree?
Yep, wholeheartedly agree. Absolutely.
And sort of how did you learn to sort of master and how did you really absorb these concepts to really be able to speak plainly, to translate somewhat legalese, policy language into something a team can understand? How does Symposia help you there?
Um, I'll say Symposia helped me there during the because we have cohorts, right? And the cohorts they're taught for they're taught in a way so that beginners can understand it. They're taught in a way that people who don't understand it will understand it. So I think that the education portion that was provided by Symposia was broken down in a way that made sense to me. And because it made sense to me, I was able to, regurgitate that information to people who may not understand it. But I think that whenever it comes to explaining, I guess, technical terms or security things to people, you need to let them understand like why it affects them in the first place. Like most of the time, especially whenever somebody requests to use a vendor, they don't care what the security is. They just want to use the vendor just because it helps them. But you have to be able to like let them understand that like we're doing this to save the company. We're doing this to make sure that nothing bad happens to the company and that you don't get in trouble for it, right? Because if you have to accept the risk and something happens to the company, it's not on me, it's on you. So if you're able to explain that in a way that they understand and they can see the implications of not doing it, it helps a lot. So that's my answer for that question.
Mhm. And to break it down for people, when we assess risks, when you're taking on a vendor and you're the one who procured them, there's a cyber war going on. So companies are getting hacked left and right because other powers want to sort of catch up to the stature and the position of this country. So they're stealing IP. If
Exactly.
that company gets hacked that you procured, it's still on you.
Right.
And so this is insurance, this is protection. And you can acquire the skill to actually go in, protect these companies. I think protect the biggest windfall right now, if you're looking to sort of increase your income, if you want to change your career trajectory, it's not to start a business, it's to go protect them.
Right.
Right. And that's what Ebenezer is doing. Tanisha asked, did you work on any projects during the program that you were able to put on your resume for experience? It seems like jobs expect you to have a lifetime of experience for entry jobs. So
Yeah.
how did you leverage your clerk experience into InfoSec?
Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah.
question.
So first question is, did you work on any projects? So as a part of the I guess education and like the roadmap that Symposia offers, it provides you the ability to work on projects that you could put on your resume, right? And they call it like internship, and you have like work portfolio that you put in all of the work that you've done. So that's the answer to that. And you said it seems like jobs expect you to have a lifetime experience for entry level jobs. So how did you leverage your clerk experience in InfoSec? And that's true. Like you go on LinkedIn, it'll say entry level, but then it'll say 10 years of experience. It doesn't make any sense. My advice to you is don't mind that. They're just putting numbers. It doesn't make sense as to why they do that. So whenever you see, 10 years of experience required, 6 years of experience required, if it's an entry level role, how are you getting 10 years of experience? They're just putting stuff down. So don't let that be a point of kind of like fear for you whenever it comes to applying for a job or going into it. And you said, how do I leverage my clerk experience? I think the way that I leveraged my clerk experience was the fact that on a day-to-day, I was talking to so many people, right? As a cashier, being personable, being a likable person. I don't think it's obviously it helps with the role in itself, but actually getting the role was where it helped most. And that's the interviewing, right? Being that personable person, being that likable person, being that person that can hold a conversation that I got from being a clerk is what actually helped me during my interviews and succeed and actually end up getting a job. And also, just like I said, whenever it actually comes into the job role itself, you need to be able to speak to the people in your team, speak to different departments, speak to the requesters, and in a way that, makes sense for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to your piece about Ebenezer, that was really great. We talk about this in Interview Mastery, which is led by Professor Jen Dalton, and that we talk about those interview strategies to go in and have an immediate impact. One of the things that students at Symposia do is they work on live documents for companies. And what that allows you to do is to apply what you're learning right now and what you're building on actual companies that we interact with every day. And so there's a big difference between interviewing straight out of college or interviewing without experience in the field or coming from managing a flooring company and sending out that application with an incident response plan that you've built out for this company because you've seen the hacks that have happened to them or companies in the sector, right? This is what they're thinking about, this is what they're needing, and you've built out the solution. So I don't care if if an attack just happened, I don't care what you've done previously. If you've built out plans, you can demonstrate competency, we need to implement that, and you have the solution. So I think the biggest thing is to not wait. As Ebenezer said, he was already an information security analyst in his mind. And this mindset thing is what I see to be the biggest determining factor of the speed of change and success with all of our students is do the job before you have it. They don't really want to hire anyone green. They want to hire someone who's competent and who can have an immediate impact. Do the job before you have it, and it'll be allocated to you.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Do these questions. And you guys, we have about 8 more minutes. So if you have more questions, dial them in before Ebenezer has to go. Sheldon asks, what certs and experiences should I obtain before seeking an AIM position, identity access management, or entry level? Oh, and do companies run through protocols on day one? Let's see. Sheldon. Certs and experiences for IAM, it's information security. I would learn how to do the job first, Sheldon. I don't think certifications are great. Actually, some companies may even get certs for you. I want to say because Ebenezer's not an IAM, so I'll take this one from you, brother. Yeah. Some companies may actually pay for certs for you if they require it. It depends on the industry that they operate in. Experiences you should obtain. Identity access management. Yeah. I would say identity access management protocols in GRC, because it's information security. You'll learn about controls that are needed. And so because IAM management really falls within the scope of controls. It's really what it's about. You'll learn about that. And I think it's really the industry that you're in. Those are the controls that you'll have to learn. Those are the frameworks you'll have to learn. IAM is really you're like administering like controls and passwords and whatnot. It's a little bit more technical. It's a little bit more, I would say, granular. It's a little bit more of a granular role.
Yeah, let me add on to that. I think one thing that I've noticed is that people put a whole lot of weight to certifications. They think that like once you get the specific cert, then you're gonna get a job. It's not the case. It's not the case. It's obviously good to get certs, but do not think that that is some automatic qualifier for you that you're gonna get a job the second I get my CISO or the second I get some CompTIA cert. I'm already set. No, that's not the case. A lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people who work in the field who have, I guess, high positions in InfoSec. Some of them don't even care. They don't even care about certs, right? Like anybody can get a cert, but can you actually do the job? It's a whole different thing. So it's good to have certs, but don't put so much weight on it and end up kind of fooling yourself to think that once I get this cert, then yeah, every company is gonna hire me. That's not the case.
Do you have any certifications, Ebenezer?
Do not have any certifications. I have 0.
Okay. So Sheldon, if you want to get experience in IAM, first I think I would honestly do is I would want to apply to Symposia or go to YouTube University and actually learn how to do some things. Just like I understand the job and what it actually looks like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, people are asking about podcast risks and staying up to date with the news. So before we'll sign off on that, but can you type up a
Yeah.
couple of that we can actually email out to people? I think emailing it will be more useful than just rattling it off here.
I'll say one, the biggest one that I listen to, and then I guess later on we can send the other ones. But Darknet Diaries was the one that I listened to a lot, and I brought it up in every single interview that I had. Some people knew about it, some people didn't. But Darknet Diaries by Jack Rhysider. You'll find it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever the case is. Listen to that. It's a very good podcast to listen to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anonymous ad is having a master's degree, and we'll email these to you guys. If you want a list, you guys are on our email list. We'll email you a bunch of great podcasts and shows you guys can watch around GRC and cybersecurity. See, Anonymous asked, does having a master's degree give you leverage in the job market? Leverage? Yeah, you have a master's degree. It's cool, but you still have to interview.
Yeah.
No. Talk to people with degrees all the time. There's many degreed people in Symposia. It's just theory versus application. So your degree will help you stand out because there will be other people without that next to their name. But I typically see people who have been seasoned then go back to get their masters. That's typically what I see because it adds more authority to the expertise that they have. But you can also have expertise first and then build authority. Expertise actually helps build authority. All right, Tanija, could you work your job as a digital nomad, or is it a security risk? Do you send any of your applications outside of the US? This is a great question. So I'll ask, because Ebenezer is based in the United States, I'll answer the second half. But for you, man, could you be a digital nomad doing this?
I could, but if you go outside the country, just let your company know. Just let them know that you're going outside the country. You don't want, because you can't hide that. They have access to their equipment and the location that their equipment is in. But my job is remote. I can work anywhere, right? If I wanted to go work in Mars, if there was some type of internet connection there, I could. Hopefully there's no hackers in Mars that's gonna steal any confidential information. But literally that's what remote is. Remote is you can work anywhere, everywhere, anytime that you want. So
yeah, that's a great question for all my digital nomads who want to live that laptop lifestyle. We have sent applications to companies that are outside the US just because it's happened. There are companies who are hiring for these roles that are based all over the world, and a strength that you have as being either an American citizen or someone who speaks English in the Anglophone world, no matter where you may be, is they'll need talent that understands the culture and understands the language if they want to do business with companies in the States or in the Anglophone world. So there's tech companies in Australia, tech companies in Canada, tech companies in France. If you're multilingual, then that's a strength as well, because those companies are maybe looking for inroads to dealing with large American companies. And you'd be able to, one, assess those risks, right? Be someone who can actually liaise with those departments, and you speak that language, you could tap into a market that may be a little less saturated. So it's a really great question. Next steps after this call. So guys, it is 8 o'clock. So this is the time where we end the call typically. Ebenezer, if you have to go, rather we thank you. Well, let's check in. It's 8 o'clock right now. Do you have a couple more minutes for a couple more questions? We're closing the list. We have 3 more questions. Two more questions.
Do 5 minutes max.
5 minutes max. All right. Thank you, guys. If you are interested in booking a call with one of our advisors at Symposia, go to the QR code on your screen, take a screenshot, or if you're on a computer, go ahead and take a picture of this, follow this QR code. You can also go to symposia.com/your-turn, or if you're already in contact with an admission specialist, go ahead and give them a text, call, or email. You can follow us at Welcome Symposia on all platforms. But for now, we're going to wrap up the last few questions of the night and let you guys prepare and eliminate those Monday scaries. McIntyre, I haven't gotten any interviews, and I've been applying for a few years now, and I don't have any recognizable certifications. What can I do to start getting interviews?
you might need to reevaluate your resume. Also, you may be applying for years, but how many applications are you actually putting in? Like I can say I've been applying for years, but what does that mean? So one, reevaluate what you have on your resume. You may need to adjust it, may need to make some tweaks, but I didn't have to worry about that. That's what Symposia did for me. So if you want to get that looked out for you, then reach out to Symposia. But the second one is, how many apps are you actually putting in? Because I can be doing 30 apps a month, right, for a year, or 30 apps every 2 months for a whole year. It's not enough. So those are the two things that you need to look at. McIntyre.
All right, McIntyre, I actually sent you a message. Shoot me an email. We'll take a look at your resume and see what's going on there. All right, Schwabe. Yep, we can stick around. All right. Schwabe will actually contact you. I know you're in the program. And I think that's it.
So.
Yep. Oh, actually, Anonymous asks, what advice do you have for someone who's already in tech, IT sales to be specific, but wants to transition into a GRC analyst? Last question.
There's this one company, I think it's Symposia. I think it's a company called Symposia that provides everything that you need. Reach out to Symposia. They can answer the questions a lot better than I can. They can provide you with everything that you need a lot better than I can. It's good that you're in tech sales. It's something that you can speak on whenever you end up interviewing, but reach out to Symposia and let them get you into GRC, man.
All right. We have 2 more minutes. Sally asks, how'd you narrow down which area to focus on with cybersecurity being so broad?
Great question. Biggest motivation for the reason why I chose third party is because my brother was already doing it and I saw the process and it made sense to me. Like it made a lot of sense to me. And I could speak on it very well and very confidently. And that's the reason why I chose it. I think sometimes like what I've seen is that people, they think they need to learn every single thing about cybersecurity, but you'll just end up in a loop where you're just trying to learn everything, and really, you don't specialize in everything. You become mediocre at a lot of things. So I chose TPRM, third-party risk management, just because I understood the process. It was simple and it made sense. And also my brother did it and I saw what he was doing. So that's the answer to that question.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your time. It's been a wonderful evening. Thank you, Ebenezer, for spending time with us. Thank you to the rest of the team at Symposia for setting this up. So if you guys are interested in getting into information security, but more importantly, regardless of the industry, you're looking to upgrade your life and access a skill set that will never go out of style, GRC is compliance and every company has to follow the law. Gain a skill that the world respects and see those results reflected in your own life. So scan this QR code, go to www.symposia.com/yourturn, book a call, respond to your admission specialist, and I hope to see you guys on the next one.
Yeah. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks, man.